Alright, I kind of forgot that this live will not be that long here. As you can see, I have a turbo weather outside here. So yeah, sorry. Anyways, hmm I'll check this. Haha, here it is.
So it's likely that there are a lot of duplicated sprites,
Oh,
sounds,
here
code,
was
music, and more.
YouTube
This
video.
obviously isn't perfect, but it is likely that this is the easiest way to make the game, and release it in chapters. So the team decided that most people can handle 600 megabytes on a modern computer. But okay, tangent over.
I think Toby forgot that when I play Deltarune, it's because I want to play Deltarune. Not some half-assed minigame where you catch and throw food, not a shitty ripoff of Zelda without any of the interesting items, level design, or progression, and definitely not a rhythm game with only 2 buttons. I hope you love these mini-games because they're absolutely the reason these 2 chapters took 4 years to release. I also hope you love these mini-games because they take up 2 hours of the chapter's runtime. I also hope you love these mini-games because if you suck at them, you're permanently locked out of getting key items. Now fortunately, I'm an epic gamer, so I got an S rank and a T rank respectively on each of the boards. But that doesn't mean content should be arbitrarily locked behind how well you do at a minigame. A minigame that doesn't use any of the skill and knowledge you've obtained playing Deltarune, and especially when failing them permanently locks you out of 100% completion with no way to try again except completely restarting the game, which I'd rather die than play through Chapter 3 again. Toby, Toby, Toby. It isn't 1997 anymore. You don't have to pad out your game with a bunch of mini-games for it to feel worth the price. You can just lower the cost down from $25 motherfucking dollars.
Okay, I find it crazy to critique an RPG of all things for having mini-games. Those have been commonplace since the 90s, and if anything, Undertale and Deltarune are basically RPGs with a million mini-games in the form of all the interesting little bullet hell battles you do. One of my absolute favorite parts of Toby Fox's approach to game design is how he constantly switches it up. Sure, the Undyne Shield mechanic, Queen Punch-Out game, and the mini-games in Chapter 3 aren't the most in-depth games in existence, but they are both enjoyable and polished, and are then built upon to create some of the best fights in their respective games. The basic Undyne fight is really great, but then you fight Undyne the Undying, and it really forces you to master this mechanic. Queen's boxing is masterfully mixed into her boss fight, and the way that the Tenno fight swaps between minigames WarioWare style and the main fight makes for one of the most enjoyable fights in the series in my opinion, and also absolutely fits the theme of a TVD world that has been built up. Finally, no, I personally don't see the problem with extra parts of a game being gated behind being good at minigames. I think it makes sense that if you want to 100% a game, then you should get good at it. All of it. And let's be real, S rank is not that hard to get. Furthermore, if you really just can't do it, you can actually fail all the games so bad that it gives you access to the content anyways. So I don't really get this complaint.
These guys were fucking shafted, which is such a massive disappointment because their designs are actually really damn good. I expected them to have their own segment culminating in a mid-boss with how much they were focused on, but nope, they're just thrown into the first minigame board completely unrelated to the setting or anything that's happening. They're just there for the sake of being there. Their boss fight sucks. They only have one attack pattern until one of them gets bigger. Then it's still basically the same attack pattern. The goal doesn't actually have anything to do with them. You just have to say I love TV a couple times before Tenna gets bored. It's such a massive disappointment, and they don't even have an original boss theme. I probably feel so disappointed by this because there was such a great fan song made for them called Whether or Not that you're listening to right now. I'll put a link in the description this time. Probably. Their dialogue is at least really cute. I actually enjoyed talking to them and getting them back together.
So this and the next section are about how Finnegan Fox was disappointed about how the weather couple and Ramp were treated in the game. And well, I think this is just his expectations hyping him up for something that the game never intended to deliver. He complains that there isn't a real boss fight with a weather couple, and that Ram isn't a secret boss. But like, all these characters are still interesting and have quite a bit to do throughout the chapter, even if they aren't big fights. He even admits that he enjoys the couple getting back together and Ram's interactions with Chris. So I don't think it's fair to critique characters for not going in the exact direction he wanted them to. And I think it's especially strange that he didn't complain that there's no secret boss for Chapter 3, whenever Chapter 3 has arguably the most difficult fight in Undertale or Deltarune, and to clear secret conditions in order to make it feasible to actually win. So I think that qualifies it as a secret boss, even if it does have a twist in the formula. I'd like to emphasize that I don't think Deltarune is a perfect, uncritiquable game, but I think it's just bad for him to critique art for simply not being what you wanted it to be. You can have and you can express these thoughts, but it doesn't make them valid criticism. And the next part of the video is covering the Snowgrave Route retro game.
The parallels to Snowgrave are a really cool revelation, especially when you freeze the blue bird, but they're just parallels. Nothing you do in this minigame is plot significant or offers any new information. It's just a recap of everything you've already done with a unique presentation, and once you realize that, it just becomes boring.
I feel that this is missing the point. Yes, some of these moments have happened already, but they were in the Dark World. Chris never killed Susie and Rousey, and it's arguable that they haven't actually killed Berdly yet, as he's still in the hospital, just in a coma. I think that Chapter 2 in this game are just foreshadowing what's really going to happen if the player continues down their Snowgrave route. With the violence spilling out into the Light World, and possibly even ending with the player killing Chris, is symbolized in the retro game. This is just speculation, but I think it's a bit strange how often Finnegan Fox complains that the events in the game are anticlimactic or simply hidden in the future. Cause yeah, game's not done. If you don't want to play an unfinished game, then you can wait for it to be done or play a different one. But there are plenty of character arcs and climatic moments in the 4 chapters of Deltarune that exist right now, so it's not like it's all been built up with no payoff.
The boss at the end is just alright. A lot of the attacks can be pretty luck-based depending on where they spawn though, and whatever calculation is used to spawn healing items is a complete mess. I think they only spawn if you're under half HP, but that just means people who are playing worse will be healed more, which feels wrong. You should be rewarded for playing well, not punished.
So I don't get this complaint, because it isn't really a reward to get healed whenever you are already at near max HP. If you were at full HP and you still ran around and grabbed all the heals, then you were just wasting your time, so it makes sense to just remove them. The system seems to mostly be in place to make the fight more forgiving of your mistakes. It isn't really a reward to have to chase down a healing item whenever you're low. That's taking time away from you attacking the boss, so it's more of a safety net. Besides, this is the Snowgrave route after all, and it seems like Toby Fox has always gone out of his way to make the bad routes less rewarding on purpose.
In a really unfunny scene with Tenna where it's revealed he was hiding Pippis in a closet, Spamton comes back to life to undo all of the emotional weight of his arc in Chapter 2. Why, Toby? Why? Stop beating this poor man's existence into the ground. The reason everyone liked him in Chapter 2 was because he had a tragic backstory, not because he was a silly little gremlin. It's not like this scene is used to expand Tenna's character either, unfortunately. It's only used as a shitty joke.
I mean, speak for yourself. I personally like the gremlinness of Spamton, but I don't understand how Spamton being alive undoes what happened in Chapter 2. Like, he didn't die, he just turned into an item, which is a thing that Darkners kinda do. So him being able to come back to talk to his old friend is a great scene, even if it is mostly just a joke.
It was established in Chapter 2 that the Darkeners from other fountains would turn to stone. I assumed that was an explanation for why they wouldn't appear in future chapters. After all, we should be focusing on new characters in future chapters, not reusing old ones in the same old jokes. But in Chapter 3, all of that is completely thrown out the window. Rules in Lancer appear repeatedly without turning into stone at all. This might be the worst part of the chapter. The writers just don't give a fuck anymore. So much for coming up with new characters and funny bits. Let's just reuse Lancer and Rules card. He's even less funny than the last time by some miracle, and he decides to take down the weather guys with him.
So, he claims that the old characters coming back and not turning to stone is the worst part about this game. Now, I agree that it's not clear why the characters didn't turn to stone. I would like more of an explanation eventually, but even if we don't get one, that's more of a minor plot hole that doesn't really impact the enjoyment of the game for me. I guess this is once again subjective, but I think Rules' shenanigans with the weather couple were very funny in my opinion. And he happens to drive a lot of the conflict between said couple. Conflict which Finnick and Fox just claimed they enjoyed, so that's a bit strange. And I don't know, I think it makes perfect sense to bring back characters from the same story for little bits and jokes. I don't think it's lazy, but that's just me. They can never make me hate you, Lancer. Next, he talks about the Tenna boss fight, which he dislikes is it kicks you out of normal fights to play the mini-games. Now, I've already stated that I love that and why I love that, but it is perfectly valid to prefer the more traditional style of boss fights, and we get several more fantastic ones in these two chapters anyways.
His boss theme is also surprisingly forgettable. I don't feel like going out of my way to listen to it again, which is insane for a Toby Fox song. Unlike Queen's boss theme, it doesn't have a clever mix of different leitmotifs, and feels very out of place as a result.
Just checking the Deltarune wiki reveals that Is TV Time has 3 different leitmotifs, including Feature Presentation, Hey Every, which is one that often gets used as Spanton and Tenna, and the main Tenna leitmotif, including variations used in songs like Doomboard. So no, this song does use several leitmotifs that are found throughout this chapter and chapter 2. It's also a good song. And in the next part of the video, he critiques Deltarune's usage of flashbacks.
For some reason, instead of naturally having characters' backstories be revealed throughout the course of the game, Toby decided on multiple occasions to stop the game and make you listen to characters exposit their backstories straight to you without any room for interpretation. These segments are handled with all of the maturity and depth of a 90s Saturday morning cartoon, something that will be established as a common trend moving forward. This is how Tenna's backstory gets revealed, and how Susie's backstory is unfortunately permanently rewritten. Why do it like this? Well, incompetence, probably. When you met Noelle in Chapter 2, she didn't stop and go, I remember Chris from when I was a kid. We rode in a Ferris wheel once, and he shook it at the top. He was always a prankster. No, she brought it up naturally during a normal conversation like a human being.
So flashbacks are a very common part in storytelling. I don't think that Deltarune using flashbacks is a really valid reason to critique the game, nor do I think that Deltarune's few flashbacks are particularly clunky. These are mostly quiet moments, where the game chooses to show images relating to the characters' soliloquies as they talk about moments important to them. The way Finnick and Fox complains Susie flashback in particular is frustrating to me, as not only do they insinuate that Toby Fox, a guy who's been writing the game since at least 2012, was retroactively changing Susie's backstory after Chapter 1, to try to make her nicer or something through this scene instead of it just being the game revealing a really nice interaction between Toriel and Susie that happened before the story. And it also makes sense to reveal it now as their history gives Susie a real reason to be motivated to save Toriel in chapters 3 and 4. But also this scene reinforces some of Susie's character's themes of hope and the found family which she has developed over the game. But also Susie recalls this flashback in an intimate moment whenever she further opens up to Chris, Rousey, and Tenna. So no, I think this happens for a good reason at a good time. And the fact that it plays a song called Flashback and shows some other faded out images doesn't make it worse storytelling than the other instances where characters talk about their past.
I hate what Susie's new backstory does to her character. It's revealed that she was always the scary girl, the bad kid, which either implies she was always a bully and a rebel, which would contradict everyone saying she was just putting up a facade, or that her appearance made everyone afraid of her and bully her, which seems very unlikely. And then it's revealed that her family was constantly moving, so she never got to keep her friends. Great, who gives a fuck? What does that change?
No, just because Susie was always performatively acting as a scary bully doesn't mean that she truly was that deep down. She's just a kid and she's been putting up a facade, likely as a result of her implied rough home life. And Susie can definitely look scary if she wants to, especially from the perspective of the other students. She literally unhinges her jaw in the first few moments we see her.
In Chapter 1, Susie was introduced as an outcast on the margin. She was near getting expelled and about to snap and kill you to get it all over with. There was a reason even Alphys feared her in Chapter 1. She clearly had some kind of deep trauma or abuse that led to her behavior, and by the end you got her warmed up enough to actually start caring about you to an extent. She was still far more calm and reserved compared to how she appears in Chapter 2. That was an incredibly interesting character. I would have loved to see how that Susie got developed. But unfortunately, in Chapter 2, it removed all of that to make her a cool rebel girl that literally everyone falls in love with. And unfortunately, Chapter 3 makes all of those changes permanent, rewriting her character to be this rated PG tomboy